Yo, what's going on guys? HyperX here, and today I want to talk about Zelda games. More specifically, my personal, to be clear, top 10 Zelda games. Because, as you guys know, I've spoken about this many times on the channel before, Zelda is my #1 favourite franchise. Above all else, above Monster Hunter, if you guys are on here because you follow me for Monster Hunter, Zelda trumps that in my book. I love this series. I've been playing it since I was very, very young, since my brother owned an N64. Ocarina of Time is what started it all. I've since gone back and played pretty much every Zelda game. I haven't completed every single one, still haven't gone back and completed Zelda 2 for example, but I've completed most of them and I love this franchise above all else. And since I am so incredibly excited for the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which by the way, at the time of recording this video, there is no name for that, but the Game Awards is coming soon, so by the time you guys are watching this video over the Christmas break, it might well be they've announced the title for it, hence why I'm calling it the sequel to Breath of the Wild. If that's the case, I apologise. Anyway, I'm super excited for that as somebody that loved Breath of the Wild and is incredibly excited for the sequel. Then I thought it'd be fun just to sit down and talk about my personal top 10 Zelda games. So, if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. Also, let me know down below, what is your list? Doesn't have to be top 10, could just be top 3, could be top 5. Let me know how you rank your Zelda games. And of course, if you like Zelda, definitely don't forget to subscribe. Of course, we did a ton of coverage when Breath of the Wild came out. And of course, when the sequel drops, we'll be doing more. But anyway, let's talk about it. Starting off at number 10, Skyward Sword. Now I know this one, you know what's strange? This one is weirdly a contentious topic. I loved this game when I played through it. I was oblivious to the media at the time of playing it. I wasn't a content creator. I didn't do anything like that. I just played the game, had a great time with it. To this day, anytime I talk about Skyward Sword, somebody normally just complains about it. They're like, this game is rubbish. I hate it. I don't know why, honestly. I thought it was a fantastic game. I really liked it. Of course, going right back to the beginning of the timeline, it of course had the Wiimote controls with the Wii Motion Plus, and it did of course do a pretty good job on the motion control side. I actually really enjoyed it. I feel like it was better than it was, say, on Twilight Princess. But I also really liked the art style for this game. I like the characters, I like the world, and I also really liked the upgrade mechanic for the items. I like the fact that when, of course, you're playing through, sometimes you upgrade them and they physically change appearance. Things like that in games, I just really enjoy. Of course, from a collection, like an RPG standpoint. So honestly, that combination of just exploring the world, the vibrant color palette, the sort of almost watercolory style, almost like teeing up towards like Breath of the Wild in the future. There are so many things about this game that I really enjoyed. I know, of course, there were some slow points. I know, of course, the kind of constant return into the sort of same boss did sort of slow down the pace, so it isn't necessarily a perfect Zelda game by those standards, but I still have nothing but fond memories of this game, so it goes in number 10. Moving on from there to number 9, of course, belongs in this list. Some people will be like, hold on a minute, why is this only number 9? This should be like number 2 or 1, but A Link to the Past. Of course, this is a definitive Zelda experience. It's, we've of course experienced it on various different platforms. My first exposure to this was on the Game Boy Advance. That is when I first played it. It, of course, introduced the 2 parallel worlds concept, which was incredible when you're exploring an already amazing world and then suddenly you find there's a whole other parallel dimension, parallel world to explore as well. Honestly, my mind was blown the first time I discovered that, the first time I got to experience that. I was like, what? This is absolutely insane. And when I kind of cast my mind back to when I sort of first got my Game Boy Advance, that was one of the earliest games I had a chance to play through, and it was so much fun. Moving on from there to number 8, Majora's Mask. Now this one, of course, takes place after the events of Ocarina of Time, using the same game engine, and as is in the name, the main mechanic for this one is the masks that transform your character, which again was an awesome thing to experience. You spend so many times playing games through as Link and then suddenly having the ability to put on these masks to become Deku, Goron, Zora. That was fantastic. I have always been a huge fan of the Goron, so that was still one of my highlights when I finally got the Goron mask and I got to roll around Termina. That was just endless happiness. Plus, of course, the fact that if you go off and do sort of some of the side quests, the sort of side missions, and you can go and get some of the extra masks and the Fierce Deity mask, the fact this introduced Fierce Deity Link, who was a badass. Yo, this was incredible, and of course re-releasing on the 3DS was super fun to play through. Then moving on from there to number 7, some people will be like, hold on a minute, how did you put this above Link to the Past? But The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventure, which of course, kind of depending on the version you got, came with Link to the Past. This was the multiplayer component, but I want to rank this higher because honestly, I had so many fond memories with that. I mean, this is the thing, right? This is an opinion-based list. I'm not talking factually as to which Zelda games are the best, but I sat down and I played this with my friends. When you, of course, have the Game Boy Advance or the GameCube controllers and you hook them up to the same system, you're running around. Honestly, it was chaos, right? I kid you not, I could not play through a dungeon without one of my friends picking me up and throwing me off the edge. It was needlessly difficult as a result of that, but it also made for such an enjoyable experience. Being able to run through shotgun playing as Red Link. I honestly just really miss Four Swords. I would love it if they could bring back like a multiplayer component. Imagine if they did like Four Swords in Breath of the Wild. Ooh, that would be nuts. It's also for that reason that I actually really enjoyed Triforce Heroes. Didn't make it into this list, but quick shout out to that game. Then following on from there, we have Link's Awakening. Honestly, for this one, I'm actually going to pick the remake they did for Switch. I've loved Link's Awakening from the beginning. Well, not technically true, from DX, shall I say, because Link's Awakening DX, of course, the Game Boy Color version, was the version that I played, and I just really liked it. As somebody that has grown up as a Nintendo fan, having a lot of sort of like nods in there, of course, having the egg on the mountain, getting to meet who is effectively Mario in game, and Yoshi, and different characters like that, I found that sort of crossover idea just really, really unique and interesting, and also just the fact that the gameplay was super fun. I played through this one quite a few times. In fact, it's probably, outside of Ocarina of Time, my most replayed Zelda game. And when they did a remake on Switch, honestly, I love what they did with the graphics. I love that sort of tilt shift look to it, the fact that everything looks like toys and stuff. I just think it was a fantastic remake, and I would of course love them to do that with some of the other handheld games, which we'll touch on later. But Link's Awakening to this day still holds a very special place in my heart. Then moving on from there, we have Twilight Princess. Of course, was a Wii launch game celebrating the 20th anniversary of Zelda when of course it came out. Link turning into a wolf. One of my fondest memories for this one was actually going to a Nintendo hands-on event. I went all the way down to a local seaside, believe it or not. It was an outdoor event, which is not exactly very practical for playing a video game where you get the sunshine glaring on the screen. Regardless, I sat there, and during that hands-on event, you got to go and round up all the sheep at the beginning. You also got to run out into the field on the horseback and just test things out, and that was so much fun. You want to know a funny story? The week running up to that event, I was a kid, I was at school, I went and put Lon Lon milk stickers on all the milk bottles in my fridge. I know, I'm a wild kid. Anyway, that aside, honestly, I really like this one. The motion controls, again, were super fun to play with. The trailer for that was epic. I still remember that trailer where Link is riding out towards the sort of hordes of enemies with the opera music playing in the background. So many fond memories with this one. It's a super dark game as well, and of course, the epic ending. Then moving on from there to number 4, Minish Cap. This is probably my favourite of the handheld Zelda games. I love this game, and this is one of the ones that I really hope Grezzo get to do a remake. If they could do a Link's Awakening style remake with that visual style for Minish Cap, it would fit so perfectly. Everything about it, it was of course really cool that it had a different enemy for a change, and also just the whole shrinking mechanic just made for some fun puzzles, fun ways to explore the world. The characters, the atmosphere, and everything about the world just had so much personality, and this is one that I plan to go back and replay soon. In fact, when the Analog Pocket drops, I want to play it on that. Then closing in on the end, of course, number 3 now goes to Wind Waker. Wind Waker, ooh, a contentious title because, of course, when it first announced, if you guys remember, this was off the back of the Space World demo where they showed a hyper-realistic looking Zelda game, and then they played the old switcheroo and they were like, haha, check out Wind Waker. So many people were outraged. They were like, what is this? This looks like a kid's game. I can't believe it. And then when you played it, ooh, this game, incredible. Combat system for this was so fluid. The whole like rolling behind the enemy, slashing the strings off the back of the Dark Nut so that of course their armor plates fell off. Everything about that one, kind of doing the sort of training session to try and sort of master your combat. All of those things, plus the whole sort of like stealth mechanic, sneaking through the castle and just exploring the world, having the ability in the boat just to kind of go off and find those islands. Yes, admittedly, some of the sort of like pursuing the Triforce elements got a little bit long-winded. So again, there were some slow periods in the game. But overall, I feel like when everyone got over the sort of shock of the drastic change to visual style from this sort of like promised hyper realistic visuals to suddenly the cel shaded thing, I think everyone can actually agree that cel shaded Link looks so cool. Toon Link is the character I play as in Smash Brothers. It's also a game that to this day still looks fantastic because of the cel shaded visuals. So yeah, Wind Waker, number 3. Then moving into number 2, honestly, this is where things get tricky. This is the hardest part, but Breath of the Wild goes in at number 2. Every time I do one of these lists, number 2 and number 1, kind of like they're so side by side that I could honestly interchange them, but Breath of the Wild, I love this. Again, I know it's one of those games that maybe isn't for everybody. I know some people didn't necessarily like the breaking weapon mechanic. Some people sort of like didn't necessarily like the completely open nature. They felt like it felt more like a kind of quote unquote open world game and not a Zelda game. Honestly, I had so much fun with this. This is a game that I actually got to sort of sit down and just play as a fan first, because honestly, when you're making content, a lot of the time you consume games in a very different way, but this is a game that I wanted to protect. I was like, I'm going to play this as a fan, and I sat down and had probably the most fun I've had in a long time. Everything about the world just made me so happy. It's one of those games where, sure, there might be barren areas in the world, but I feel like Breath of the Wild did a fantastic open world job whereby if ever you saw something seemingly interesting in the distance, normally if you went there, you would be rewarded by finding something cool. It wasn't one of those kind of like barren open worlds where you wandered somewhere and there was just nothing and it was just boring. I felt like the team did a fantastic job of making the world exciting, making the world somewhere you wanted to explore. And the nice thing is, every single time I spoke to someone else about their Breath of the Wild experience, everyone had a different story to tell. They're like, I went up this mountain and I saw a dragon, or I went here and I got destroyed by a Lionel, and it was just so cool to share those stories. The kind of collection aspect of like getting all the different armor sets, I really liked just exploring the world. It's still a game that these days I'll just jump back in and wander around and just have some fun in. So Breath of the Wild is number 2, but it could on any day easily swap with number 1 and just be my top Zelda game. That's why I'm so excited for the sequel, because honestly I feel like if they take the foundation of Breath of the Wild and just add in a few more things, some of the kind of traditional Zelda tropes we really like, we could potentially have the best Zelda game ever made. I believe it. That being said, moving on to number 1, the game that started it all for me, Ocarina of Time. This was my first ever Zelda game, and to this day it is still number 1. Again, like contentious, I can swap it between Breath of the Wild on any given day, but Ocarina of Time, incredible title. Of course, it sold 7.6 million copies worldwide, was of course the best-selling Zelda title in the series at the time, and this is just a masterclass in game design. Honestly, there is so many fantastic elements to this one. I love the whole sort of adult and child arc. Again, one of those systems where, you know, when you're playing through, you don't even know it's coming, and then suddenly you just go and put your sword and you're like, haha, time skip, you're an adult now. Like, wait, what? Then you go through and of course you get the different tunics, which of course from a customization point of view, your boy spent most of the time wearing the red tunic, unless of course I had to wear something different, and the mirror shield so it all matched. Of course, the quest to go and get the big Goron sword, so many fantastic memories, and then of course making the 3D version on Nintendo 3DS. Of course, you could also include Master Quest, the flipped reverse version. There are so many different re-releases of Ocarina of Time, but this is also my most replayed game. I've played through Ocarina of Time and Master Quest more times than I can count, honestly. I can't even remember how many times, but I love this game, and to this day, it still holds up. It is still a fantastic game to play through, so there you have it. That is my number 1 Zelda title. But that's it. That's it for the video. Those are my personal, again, reminder, personal. I'm not ranking them based on some arbitrary statistics to say these are definitively the best Zelda games. This is just my list. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Which are your favorite Zelda games? What do you think about my order? Some of you guys are gonna be like, yo, you crazy, man. Like, where's the original Zelda? Why is that not in your list? Anyway, that aside, that's my list. I can't wait for the sequel. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and keep it locked for plenty more. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to catch more from us, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest uploads. And if you want somewhere to hang out, play games, or chat all things from games to anime, food to fitness, consider joining the HyperX Gaming Discord.